NOS4A22, Chapter 11, The Ghoul-Eaters. The F3 Earthbeast hordes were wreaking havoc in Europe and Asia, while the Order of the Leech terrorized the Americas. The atmosphere in Manchester, England this particular night had changed ever so subtly. If one was not a person living on the streets, then most likely it went unnoticed. The only people aware of this change in atmosphere were the ones society rejected every day: the homeless, the street worker, the alcoholic, the addict, the ones who were easiest to disregard. Barriers between psychic holds were being breached after one significant thing had happened. Carlos, when in a house with Aram, took his sword and flicked it, while Aram the Leech was in motion about to swoop up a girl the age of 11. Carlos had cut off the head of Aram the Leech. The power source of the Nosferatu needed a new place to go. Aram the Leech had targeted this young girl he eyed for his own taking. Carlos had to watch as the Leech planned countless atrocities. His natural reaction as the Leech moved forward to grab the girl was a quick flick of his blade from left to right. His head rolled right off his body and hit the floor hard, making the little girl jump out of a blissful sleep. As the little girl sat up stiffly, the fear gripped her as her vision came clear, rubbing her eyes with her little balled-up fists. Black plasma that looked like harmful smoke, if smoke could be wet in space and move without gravity, had poured out of the neck of the Leech's freshly decapitated body as it lay chest down on the old hardwood upstairs floor. A little trace of it had settled like a smoldering chamber next to the open neck of the head. Aram's mouth was open in a gasping expression, and the Nosferatu essence poured upward towards the ceiling until more of the ectoplasmic evil came out of the nose, directly from the dying brain of the Leech. Once it did this, the shit from Aram's nose hit the upward flowing mouth stream and angled towards the direction of Carlos. The real evil power source and essence of the Nosferatu entered Carlos through his mouth and nose straight to his brain. The takeover was different than how Aram imagined and expected. Aram's soul was destroyed in self-righteous failure. The original Leech's spirit was damned and doomed from the beginning after all, and no one could have known until his end, as this is how it must be for the next age. Aram had surpassed not one, but 2 ages, and so the old bastard had to pay double time for his cheating. His evil spirit was scattered to the wind, like chaff to the wind, as the term was during the time of his expired life. Carlos's takeover, instead of being with Aram entwined, had bypassed this plan entirely, saving himself and all the people who were being manipulated. In another time that had been pulled back and erased, much more wars between the warring Nosferatu had happened. Aram and Ursula had ripped out each other's hearts with their own clawed hands. Instead, Carlos changed the fate of the world by his natural reaction. In another time, in another life that had not been, Carlos cut off both of their heads while they clawed at each other. Not even Carlos himself knew that he was going to do what his natural reaction had pulled off in that moment while being overtaken while being overtaken in the heat of passion. This was a beautiful act of loving kindness that unfortunately gave this poor little girl such trauma she nearly died of fright. After waking from the sound of a decapitated Nosferatu head bouncing off of her bedroom floor, she saw a man become possessed, then witnessed actual monsters rush in from her from her bedroom window, and devour the rapidly decaying body of Aram the Leech, the original New Age telepathic psychic vampire. The Ghoul-Eaters came and ate as if they had been created for this very moment, to devour, then disappear back to the hidden imagined place. Immediately, Carlos became a walking contradiction. He was now holding the evil energy of the vampiric force, as his body was the permanent host until his death would come, and even still his good, noble act had saved him from the complete doom of unlimited evil. Each and every soul was freed from the curse of the Nosferatu that Aram the Leech had put in place. The children who were taken for the last 2,000 years, instead of being devoured by the Ghoul-Eaters, like what had happened to them in the other dreadful time that was not, they instead had been freed and released. The soul redemption was staggering in numbers. If no one was able to see the slight atmospheric change that occurred from the coming of the new vampiric age through transferring of the Nosferatu power source, then certainly the people who had their eyes observing the outside areas of Old England this night saw the ascension of those countless souls Carlos freed. The real demonic Nosferatu spirit of evil had been purified through this, and changed into Carlos's manifestation of all the darkness that was in him. The little girl whose room the leech invaded was transformed into a new type of Nosferatu. These were more dangerous because they were split between good and evil, the same as Carlos had become. No matter the amazingly good act Carlos pulled off and accomplished, the Nosferatu had consumed him as he became the new face of evil. The good in him would be able to overcome if he could stop the Earth's beast. She was furious that her legions were freed, so the Earth's beast came to him with haste. When she came, Carlos and the little girl he both saved and doomed at the same time without trying became a type of Ghoul-Eater herself. You know my name, Father. I am Death," the little girl said just before the Earth's beast had arrived in her bitter rage. "You took my entire army." The Earth's beast came flying into the town of Manchester and landed in the street intersection in front of the house Carlos and the little girl had just left after killing both the girl's parents. The little girl had eaten them both alive in a frenzy after experiencing years of neglect from her parents' selfishness. Now, it was like the Earth's beast had flown directly into the little girl's mouth. The girl who called herself Death. Her head from above her bottom jaw bent back like the Ghoul-Eaters, and she ate the wicked abomination that was the Earth's beast. In her anger, Ursula destroyed herself, as she also had cheated the devil for far too long. The evil force within Carlos wanted to take back what was rightfully owed to its dark domain, and took it through the little girl who called herself Death. Now at this point, things were taken back to how they should have been, so Father Time made corrections throughout the manipulated and destroyed generations, throughout those lost 2,000 years. Each and every soul who was taken was now freed. From this, the atmosphere greatly changed. Janice and her group of good, strong creatives were freed from the hold that Aram had over them. This gave them tears of joy as they could finally properly tell their stories without being made to lie by the crooked hold that twisted their thought patterns to spew Aram's lies. Micaiah was free from the hold, but still trapped within the imagined pathways. Her frustration peaked once she was actually freed that night from the telepathic psychic vampire hold. Her tears were multiplied to an overwhelming abundance. The stockpiles of black quartz crystal tears had to be gathered in specially starch-coated cloth sacks because the energy would self-conduct through natural light if left exposed. An unknown fact within the old Congo files from what Charlie Minx had originally found but someone else gathered was the corruption of the people in the heart of Africa endured during the times of invasion. Special elements found in their land were taken with blood by force. Some elements naturally thrived there, while others came from the sky from outer space. As a sign, Micaiah cried these tears because of the years of corruption her people endured. The white devils came, who were not really human, but either possessed or actual old demons still roaming, as well as half-breed old demon NOS4A22 children. They all died out recently, these evil beings, the rest of them. The New Age NOS4A22 had to change things up and convince people that what people had seen and experienced was not them. The new NOS4A22 established the New Age and developed it through the manipulation Aram achieved. He brought the world down to its knees as the telepathic psychic vampire was born or created. What was recovered in those files Charlie Minx originally found blown about, half on the sidewalk, half in the gutter, strewn about in the street next to his wraith, had been kept in our safekeeping so that the secret does not get out to the general population. The world cannot handle the truth that our world is run, operated, and governed by telepathic psychic vampires who mine the earth for destructive purposes. These ones hold seats within every seat of authority, from the largest organizations down to the small ones. They sit next to good people in every place there is. They get away with it because there are different kinds and types. No matter how absurd this sounds, this has always been the case since the beginning of time. Things within the Order of the Leech just kept changing with the coming of New Ages esoterically. Everything has an order. How crazy was it that Charlie would find that page stuck in the gutter? That dry gutter only had one little wet spot on that extraordinarily dry and unusual day. It was like the finger of the devil held that page there for him until he parked alongside the road to pick it up, with his headlights magically turning on as day turned into night. The single page blew into his hand as soon as he put out his reach to pick it up. He did in fact grab the open briefcase. Charlie cautiously looked back and forth like a paranoid person while he stuffed as many papers inside as he could. After he learned all he needed to become a telepathic psychic vampire himself, he thought better about it, and did not want men in black suits in black cars harassing him, as he had learned of these stories of a man who was stalked until he disappeared. Funny thing was, he didn't have to worry about that because he was chosen. The experiment to see what another darkly evil, strong creative would do alone on his own. He obviously caused great suffering and discord as he cheated death, so it was counted among the Order of the Leech as a huge success. Now, the Order of the Leech had changed into an organization without any children to do their bidding, other than the girl who became contaminated and infected by the Earth Beast's rotten old flesh and blood that cheated death by the very innocent blood of the boys she mutilated, sacrificed, and captured. A beautiful thing happened after the changing of the guard for the Order of the Leech. All their remaining followers, who were like Bing Partridge, were hunted down and devoured by the Ghoul-Eaters until there were virtually none left, because they were too afraid to kill, since after the initial ghoul devouring happened, the news traveled fast within both factions of the divided Nosferatu not to kill unless you wanted the Ghoul-Eaters to come and eat you. This became the best blessing of all, as it protected all the innocent children who otherwise would have been destroyed in one way or another, the same way as Aram and Ursula destroyed the youth of 2 millennia. In another time, by the manipulation of destiny, the Ghoul-Eaters were forced to eat generation after generation of taken children, who became twisted Nosferatu within the Order of the Leech and the F3. Another beautiful thing happened. All those ascended souls ascended to Millie's paradise, and inhabited bodies formed from the many tears of Micaiah, with the help of Maggie and Janice, who had gathered and grouped together the black quartz crystals along with Vic's ghost, who was now freed from the hell she was kept in by the hold Aram had on her that carried on into the afterlife. Vic's ghost had learned in the moment Aram the Leech was beheaded that her problems with her eye and preventing her from using her strong creative gifts are from none other than Aram the Leech himself. Maggie also learned this too, that she was much more powerful now that she was freed from a hold she never realized was on her, because it was all she had ever known for all her life.